The campus during the summer is a little more lazy than usual. The sun shines through Lin Jidao, and the glaring light is reflected on the glass windows of the teaching building. Nalan was carrying her shoulder bag and walked through the school gate quickly. She was holding a light pop song in her earphones, and the corners of her mouth were slightly raised. Today is the first day of summer replenishment classes, which may be a hard time to add to others, but for her, it is a battle to the next champions. Nalan! Wait for me. A familiar cry came from behind. Ming Qing caught up with her breathless smile, and a slight smile on her face, and the horsetail on her head was running and swaying. You're so fast, are you wearing rockets? Qing held her knees and gasped, and wiped the sweat off her head with her hands. I said, you don't have to rest during the summer vacation? The national championships are still in the supplementary class. Are you planning to get the teacher directly? Nalan took off her earphones, glanced at her sideways, and teased her with a little bit of teasing in her language. Rest? Isn't that a chance to catch up with your opponent? Then, there is a dragon tiger hidden in the replenishment class, and maybe there is a black horse that can make me feel warm. Hot. Please, you are Nalan, the unfailing queen of the national competition. Who dares to be hot with you? I'm afraid you're killed by you in a second. Qing rolled her eyes, her vocals as if she was playing a speech. I tell you, the students in our class are all top students in various schools. I heard that there are still a few students who have transferred their school backgrounds. But, no matter how mysterious it is not as harmful as a monster like you who have never forgotten. Nalan smiled lightly and didn't answer, but just lowered her head to sort out the notebook in her bag. I never forget it after reading it. This is her golden finger. From small to large, she can perfectly recall the topics, formulas, and even a book she has read. This ability made her invincible in the competition and made her a monster, among other people's words. But only she herself knew that this ability was not caused by falling from the sky, but by countless hard work and pressures day and night. The two of them walked around chatting and soon arrived at the classroom where the class was replenished. There were already many people sitting in the classroom, and there was an inexplicable sense of tightness in the air. Most of these students are top students from all schools and are usually the best in their own schools. However, when they come to this kind of supplementary class, no one is convinced, and there is a more arrogant meaning in their eyes. Nalan casually found a seat by the window and sat down. Yan Qingya sat next to her and began to speak gossip. Look, the one wearing eyeglasses on that side heard it was the mathematical competition in the next province. Last year, she almost won the championship. There was also the one wearing a white shirt, who was the seed player of the physics Olympics. Don't look at it. No matter how bad these people are, they have to ignore me first. Nalan stopped her, her language was calm and filled with an unquestionable confidence. She took out a topic from her bag and began to look down, her eyes focused on what was studying the secrets of the worldly martial arts. It took no time for the teacher to walk into the classroom. He was a middle-aged man wearing golden lenses, and was very strict. He briefly introduced the course schedule for the replenishment class and then changed. Since everyone is top student, I won't stop talking. Today's first class, let's go straight to the exciting game, the simulated competition. The topic is my own opinion, and it's difficult to be one level higher than the national competition. Who can solve the first one? I'll ask him to drink milk tea for a month. The slug was blown up in the classroom, and the students whispered and looked full of excitement and challenge. Xiaoqing reached Nalan's ears and said in a low voice, Hey, isn't this giving you benefits? A month of milk tea, it's stable. Nalan ignored her, just smiled slightly, picked up her pen, and was ready to welcome this hot body. The question was quickly discovered. As the teacher said, the difficulty was quite high. It involved a comprehensive application of multiple subjects, and some common solutions were deliberately set to trap. The classroom quickly calmed down, with only the rustling sound of the pen. However, this Nalan is a piece of cake. She glanced at the question and instantly saw relevant formulas and solutions in her brain, and even the questions behind the question were guessed. Her pen tip danced on the draft paper, almost without stopping, and the problem-solving process was like a flowing water, and the next to her was stunned. Yutsao, Nalan, your speed, are you a human? Ching muttered in a small voice, her eyes filled with admiration. In less than 20 minutes, Nalan had completed all the questions. She checked the answers and after confirming that there was no mistake, she calmly stood up and handed the answer paper to the teacher. The students in the classroom kept raising their heads, their eyes filled with shock. Someone commented in a low voice, "Who is this? So fast." She is Nalan, a monster that she never forgets last year's national championship team. My God, this speed is too impressive. The teacher took the answer paper and glanced quickly, showing a satisfied smile on his face. All right. Nalan is worthy of being the champion, and her ideas for solving the problem are straightforward and perfect. It seems that I have to give you the milk tea this month. A sound of her hands broke out in the classroom, and Nalan just clicked her head slightly, returned to her seat, with no special expression on her face. She has seen too many such scenes and has long been tempted by others and admired them. But deep down, she was a little disappointed. Such a topic, such a rival was actually too boring. Look, I just said you are a monster. I guess you are almost crying for help. Xian Qing patted her shoulder with a smile, her vocals filled with pride, as if she had benefited from it. Nalan was about to speak back when she heard a low voice from the door of the classroom, "Teacher, sorry I'm late." Everyone's eyes turned to the door, and only a long-skinned boy walked in. He was wearing a simple white t-shirt and denim pants, his hair was a little chaotic, and he couldn't hide his cold eyes, as if he was hiding some secret. The whole person scatters a different atmosphere, both distant and attractive. The teacher snaked his eyebrows, but didn't say much, just said, "You are a new school student, right? You're called Yi Chen, right? Come in and take a seat. Today's first class is a mock competition. You're here just right, try it." Yi Chen clicked the head and found a seat in the back row to sit down, with no extra expression. Xiao Qing reached Nalan's ears and said in a low voice, "This person looks a bit cool." He heard that he is a school student and his background is quite mysterious. Do you think he is a hidden boss? Nalan didn't answer, but just glanced at Yi Chen, and inexplicably became more curious in her heart. This person doesn't look like an ordinary student, but she can't say it's different in detail. In the next time, the classroom became more peaceful and everyone continued to solve the problem. After Yi Chen got the question, he glanced at it, then picked up the pen and started writing it slowly. His movements were not as fast as Nalan, but he felt unforgiving confidence, as if he had long been confident. After about 10 minutes, Yi Chen stopped his pen, got up and walked to the lecture stage, and handed the answer paper to the teacher. There was another stir in the classroom, and everyone discussed, "What? So fast? It's just that I'm not Nalan has already." The teacher took the answer paper and carefully checked it. The expression on his face changed from surprise to praise. "It's true. Yi Chen, your solution is very unique, and it's even simpler than the standard answer. It seems that our class has another ruthless character." As soon as this happened, the whole scene was silent. Nalan's eyes also changed slightly, and she felt a pressure in the competition for the first time. She turned to look at Yi Chen, and found that the other party was looking straight at her, with the corner of her mouth slightly slight, as if she was holding a slight. "Nalan, right?" Yi Chen's voice was low and clear, with a bit of heart-wrenching temperament. "I heard that you are the National Champions League, but it is true that you are a famous person. However, I have a simpler solution to this question just now. Do you want to listen?" The classroom calmed down in an instant, and everyone held their breath, waiting for Nalan's response. Jing Qing muttered in a low voice, "Yutsao, is this guy here to smash the field?" "Nalan, fuck him." Nalan raised her eyebrows, there was no slight roar on her face, but a long-lasting desire to compete was ignited in her heart. She stood up and met Yi Chen's gaze, her voice calmly hiding a slight hue. "Oh? Then I have to listen. How simple your solution is." Yi Chen smiled, took the question from the teacher, walked to the blackboard, and began to write down his solution step by step. His thinking was clear and generous, and he even skipped some common steps and directly completed the guidance with a clever formula. In less than 5 minutes, everyone present was stunned. Nalan stared at the guidance on the blackboard, her eyes gradually becoming solemn. She had to admit that this solution was indeed simpler than hers, and could even be said to be a genius creativity. She never thought that this question could be solved like this. How is that? Yi Chen turned around and looked at Nalan, with a splash in his language. Are you interested? Let's compare with me next time. Nalan didn't answer immediately, but just looked at him quietly, and a wave broke out in his heart. After many years, she has never met a partner who can make her feel the pressure, but today, this guy named Yi Chen has done it easily. Just compare. She finally opened her mouth, with a sense of war in her language. I want to see how many skills you have. A discussion broke out in the classroom again, and everyone could see that the flaming smell between these two people was so heavy that it could not be dissolved. Yi Chen covered her mouth and smirked, and said to Nalan in a low voice, Hey, why do I think the look you look at him is a little different? Don't say nonsense. Nalan glared at her, her face inexplicably hot. She quickly turned over, pretending to organize her pen and conceal her strangeness. Yi Chen looked at her reaction and the smile on the corner of her mouth became deeper. He didn't say anything else, but returned to his seat, his eyes always stayed on Nalan, as if he had set his goal. The first class ended in a tight and exciting atmosphere. Nalan packed up her things and prepared to leave the classroom, but her heart couldn't calm down for a long time. She knew that from today on, her competitive career, and even the entire summer vacation, might not be calm again. And the name Yi Chen is also determined to become an existence in her life that cannot be ignored. In the summer replenishment classroom, the air conditioning cold makes people feel refreshed, but there is an invisible feeling of tension in the air. Since the appearance of Yi Chen in the first class, Nalan has felt an unprecedented pressure. The boy had a cold and sharp look, as if he could see through everything, which made her feel unconvinced and a little inexplicably palpitations. The next morning, the teacher announced a major news. Today we will come to a formal simulation competition. In order to simulate the environment of the national competition, this competition is held in the form of a group confrontation, with 3 people in each group. The topic covers the comprehensive application of mathematics, physics and chemistry, and is limited to 2 hours. The group with the highest score in the end will receive a set of reference materials for the competition led by my private sponsor, which is very valuable. The bulb was blown up in the classroom, and the students were excitedly discussing, their eyes filled with light of trying. When Xiaoqing reached Nalan's ears, she muttered in a low voice, Hey, isn't this your main venue? No matter who you are assigned to join you, you will basically win. Nalan glanced at her and slighted on the corner of her mouth, lying up. That's not necessarily the case. I hope there will be some challenge, otherwise this competition will be too boring. As the voice fell, the teacher began to announce the group list. Nalan was assigned to the first group and formed a team with Lin Zhe, the mathematical competition team with Yang Qing and another lens-wearing mathematical competition. When the teacher read the second group, Nalan's eyes were unconsciously tight. Yi Chen's name was listed, and his teammates were 2 students who seemed to be powerful. One was a seed player in the Olympic Games, and the other was a master in the chemistry game. Feng Qing patted Nalan's shoulder, and said with a little bit of happiness in her language, There's something good to watch here. You are directly matched with that mysterious school transfer student. I'll win you together, how about it? What are you going to be gambled? I'm serious. Nalan gave her a blank look, but a war in her heart. She turned to look at Yi Chen and found that the other party was also looking at her, with a faint smile hanging on the corner of her mouth, as if she had expected this to be a decision. Okay, the division is completed, the competition is now beginning. The topic has been posted to you. The paper will be handed in 2 hours, and the scores will be announced immediately. The teacher's order, and the atmosphere in the classroom suddenly became tight, and everyone started to study the topic. Nalan flipped through the question and glanced at it. He found that the difficulty this time was indeed not low, especially in the comprehensive question part, where the knowledge points of mathematics, physics and chemistry are intertwined, and if you are not careful, you will fall into the trap of the question. She quickly adjusted the relevant formulas and ideas for solving problems in her brain, and then turned to the teammates. Lin Zhe, you are responsible for the mathematical part. Qing, you help me organize the data, and I will focus on the guidance of comprehensive questions. We divide the work and cooperate. Efficiency is the first priority. I understand. Lin Zhe pushed the eyeglasses and began to calculate with a focused look. Although Qing usually loves her, she is still very reliable in the key moment. She immediately took out her notebook and started recording data and key points. Nalan was focused on the topic, and wrote the pen in her hand quickly on the draft paper. Her ability to remember her almost didn't need to read the book, and all the knowledge and formulas were clearly presented in her brain. She quickly sorted out the idea of the first comprehensive question and began to push it step by step, which was astonishingly fast. On the other hand, Yi Chen's group is not to be outdone. He sat in the middle and said to his teammates calmly, "You two deal with single subjects separately and give me the comprehensive questions. Remember, speed and accuracy are as important as you are, don't make any mistakes." His two teammates clicked the spot and quickly became involved in the solution. Yi Chen opened the question and narrowed his eyes slightly, as if the hunter had locked the basketball. He picked up the pen, started writing it slowly, and occasionally stopped to think for a while, then continued to push, and his movements were filled with an unquestionable confidence. As time passed by minute, the atmosphere in the classroom became increasingly tense. Nalan's first comprehensive question has been completed. She checked it and after confirming that there was no error, she quickly turned to the second question. This question is more difficult, involving the introduction of a physical model and quantitative analysis of chemical reactions. If you are not careful, you will lose everything. Qing, please check this reaction data. I remember that there seems to be a regular number that needs to be calibrated. Nalan said without raising her head. Okay, now. Qing quickly flipped through the information and found the relevant data to report it to Nalan. At this moment, Nalan heard a humble word coming from the other side. When she looked up, she found that Yi Chen's group had completed the first comprehensive question and was discussing the idea of the second question. Yi Chen's voice was low and clear. The key to this model is to ignore secondary variables and directly use simplified formulas to promote it. You see, you can directly substitute it here. His teammates heard it all the time and their eyes were full of admiration. Nalan stared at her eyebrows and felt tight-minded. Yi Chen's speed and thinking were actually faster than she had expected. She bit her lip, quickly retracted her gaze, focused on her own topic, and tried to speed up the picture. However, when she just completed the preliminary promotion of the second question, Yi Chen's group had already delivered the answer. The teacher took the answer sheet and quickly checked it, showing a satisfied smile on his face. The second set is correct. The idea of solving the problem is very clever, especially the comprehensive question part, which is perfect. A shock sound broke out in the classroom, and everyone looked at Yi Chen's group, their eyes filled with shock. Nalan's hands slightly turned, and an unprecedented pressure surged in her heart. Although her group was almost completed, her speed and efficiency were obviously suppressed by the other party. Nalan, we have to speed up. We can't let that guy get rid of the risk. Qing urged in a small voice, with a little anxiety in her language. Don't be anxious, speed is important, but accuracy is more important. Nalan took a deep breath and forced herself to calm down. She quickly checked the answer, and after confirming that there was no error, she handed the answer to the teacher. After the teacher finished checking, he clicked, the first group is correct, too. But the speed is a little slower, and the score is currently 5 points behind the second group. As soon as this came out, Nalan's face changed slightly. She never left the game, and this feeling made her both unwilling and a little excited. She finally met a rival who deserved all her strength. The next round will be more difficult and involve strategic solutions. You have 10 minutes to rest, be prepared to face the real challenge, the teacher announced. During the rest period, Yang Qing walked to Nalan and said in a low voice, Nalan, this Yi Chen is too strong. His solution to the problem is not a routine at all. When I saw his promotion process, it seemed like he was playing. Have you noticed that he seemed to be very familiar with the game routine, as if he had experienced many major games? Nalan clicked a little, and thought in his eyes, it's not simple. His logical thinking is too strong, and he can find the best solution at almost every step. I have to adjust the strategy, otherwise he may be hit. She said, her eyes unconsciously glanced at Yi Chen. The other party was looking down at a note, with no expression on his face, but occasionally when he raised his head, his eyes would always face her inadvertently, with a faint smile. Nalan's heart hopped, moved his eyes quickly, pretending to organize the draft paper, and covering up his own strangeness. Hey, why do I think you look at him a little unfavorable? Ching suddenly came over, her language filled with teasing. Is it a spark of competition, or a spark of heart? Don't talk nonsense. Nalan glared at her, her face feeling a little unconsciously hot. I just want to figure out his details so as not to be inexplicable. Ching sniffed her shoulders and said with a smile, okay, I won't say it anymore. But seriously, I think this guy is a bit mysterious. You see, he doesn't communicate much with people in normal times, and his teammates keep a distance from him, as if he has some secrets. You have to be careful not to be deceived by him. Nalan didn't answer, but just looked at Yi Chen's back calmly, and a sense of curiosity broke out in her heart. Who is this person? Why is there such a power? She slammed her head and forced herself to focus on the next competition. 10 minutes later, the second round competition officially began. As the teacher said, it is difficult to go to another floor. Not only does it examine the knowledge points, but it also requires participants to formulate strategies and divide the work and cooperate to complete a series of linked topics. The score of each question is related to the order of the problem and strategy, and a slight mistake will affect the total score. Nalan quickly glanced at the question and quickly developed a strategy in his brain. Lin Zhe, you are responsible for the basic calculation of the first ring. Ching, help me sort out the data of the second ring, and I come to design the overall solution to the problem. Our goal is to first stabilize the basic points, and then overtake in the last ring. I understand. The two of them quickly started to work. Nalan's life was not forgotten, which allowed her to quickly clarify the logical structure of the topic. She began to design the problem-solving path and tried to find the best solution in the picture. However, when she occasionally raised her head, she found that Yi Chen's group had completed the first ring and was pushing into the second ring in an orderly manner. Yi Chen's voice was low and cold. The key to this circle is to allocate time, don't waste money on the details, and directly enter the core problem. His teammates said that they move quickly and efficiently. Nalan bit her lip, and a feeling of reluctance surged in her heart. She accelerated and tried to win a goal in the second ring, but Yi Chen's strategic thinking made her frustrated. His group could always predict her next step, and even set a trap in advance, making her strategy invalid. Nalan, our scores have been pulled out again. They are so fast. Ching said anxiously, sweating was already emerging from the base. Nalan took a deep breath, her eyes gradually becoming calm. She knew that if she continued to follow the usual rules, she would only be driven by Yi Chen. She must break through her own limits and create a brand new way of solving the problem. She flashed through countless formulas and methods quickly in her brain, and her ability to remember her instantly adjusted all the relevant knowledge points. Suddenly, she flashed her mind and thought of a big idea, skipping the complex calculation of the second ring, starting directly from the core problem of the third ring, and using the reverse diversion method to complete the promotion. This idea is extremely risky, and once it fails, the entire strategy will collapse. But Nalan knew that this was her only chance to overtake. She quickly wrote the guidance step on the draft paper, and then said to the teammates, I heard that we will change our strategy and start directly from the third step and reverse it back. Lin Zhe, help me to verify the feasibility of this formula. Be prepared for the data, let's take a look. What? Reverse thrust? This is too risky. Yi Chen widened her eyes, but when she saw Nalan's calm eyes, she could only grit her teeth and point, okay, let's fight. Lindsay also pushed the lens and quickly began to calculate. Nalan's palms were sweating slightly, but her eyes were unusually focused. Time passed by minute, and her guidance gradually took shape. Although she encountered some small problems in the middle, with her strong memory and logic ability, she finally successfully completed the reverse rush. It's done. Nalan said in a low voice. A smug smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. She quickly sorted out the answers and handed the answers to the teacher. The teacher took the answer sheet and carefully checked it. The expression on his face changed from surprise to praise. The first group, this solution, is a genius. The reverse repulsion method is used too cleverly, completely skipping the common ideas, and surpassing the second group with scores. A sound of his hand broke out in the classroom, and everyone looked at Nalan's group, their eyes full of admiration. Yi Chen also raised his head and looked at her, with a hint of surprise in his eyes. Then the corners of his mouth slightly slapped, as if he agreed with her performance. Nalan, you are so awesome. How did you come up with this reverse method? I didn't react. Yi Chen patted her shoulder excitedly, her language full of worship. Nalan smiled lightly, wiped the sweat from her head, and felt a little tired in her language. It's just that the spirit flashed and the game was right. However, this game has not ended yet, don't relax. She said, her eyes falling on Yi Chen again. The other party was discussing something with his teammates, and there was no special expression on his face, but she could feel that he was not angry because of the fall, but instead seemed to have aroused his ambition. After the competition ended, the teacher announced the final result, and Nalan's group defeated Yi Chen's group with a slight advantage. Although she won, Nalan didn't have much joy, and she felt more appreciation for Yi Chen in her heart, this person, who was so powerful that she had to give her all. After the class, the students left the classroom in two places. Nalan packed up her things and prepared to leave with Yi Chen. I heard a low voice from behind me, Nalan, today's reverse method is very exciting. She turned around and found that Yi Chen was standing far away, with a look of realism in her eyes. Nalan raised her eyebrows and asked with a point in her language, thank you. However, your strategy is not bad, and I almost can't turn it over. Yi Chen smiled and didn't answer, but just looked at her quietly, with a slight emotion in his eyes that was unpredictable. Nalan felt a little uncomfortable when he saw it. He was about to say something, but heard him whisper, next time, I won't give you a chance to overtake. This sounds like a picky sound, but there is no obsession in the language, but it seems like a deal. Nalan was stunned for a moment, then snorted lightly, then try it. I won't send it to the same person twice. Yi Chen didn't say anything more, but just clicked the head and turned away from the classroom. His back was long and lonely, allowing Nalan's vision to stay unconsciously for a moment. Hey, what are you stupid? Ching suddenly appeared and patted her on the shoulder, her lingering filled with teasing. I said, are there more and more sparks between you and this guy? The conversation just now seemed to be in tune with me. Touch your head. Nalan glared at her without any worries, quickly carried her bag, covering her strangeness. Let's go, don't think about it. Ching smiled and chased after him. Okay, I won't say it anymore. However, I still think this Yi Chen is a bit unsimple. You see, he is so strong today, he doesn't look down at all, as if he is deliberately hiding something. You have to be careful and don't be deceived by him. Nalan didn't answer, but just walked quietly, and a wave of waves broke out in her heart. A spark of competition, or a spark of heart? She didn't dare to think deeply, but she knew that from today on, Yi Chen's name had left untouchable marks in her heart. In the summer training class, there are still many challenges waiting for her. And the story between her and Yi Chen seems to have just begun. The summer replenishment class has been in its last week. The air in the campus seems to be carrying a lightness of the end, but for Nalan, these few days are her most intense moments. The national competition is coming soon. This is not only the key battle for her crown champion, but also the climax of her competition and tacit engagement between her and Yi Chen. The students in the classroom were working hard, and even the lovely young Qing put away her hippie smile, holding a bunch of memorable words every day to read hard. That night, the lights were on in the classroom of the class, and several students who stayed for the end of their work were still working hard. Nalan sat by the window, with a thick set of topics on her hands, and the missteps of the daytime simulation game were constantly replaying in her brain. In the simulation competition this afternoon, her group once again fought with Yi Chen's group. Although she finally won the best, the process was unusually difficult. Yi Chen's strategic thinking and insight into deep-level logic of topics forced her to break through her limits again and again. "Nalan, aren't you leaving? It's almost 9 o'clock, I'll get up early tomorrow." Qing packed up her things and stood beside her muttering, full of concern in her words, "Apart from that, do you still use this kind of trick? You are a monster like this? You might as well go back to sleep and have a beauty experience with this time." Nalan raised her head, rubbed her slightly sore eyes, and smiled reluctantly. "What are you sleeping? The national competition is right in front of me, I don't want to send it to anyone. Especially." Before she finished speaking, she glanced at Yi Chen in another corner of the classroom without thinking. Yi Chen sat alone in the back row, with a notebook on the table, and a cup of refreshing coffee was placed next to it. His expression was focused and cold. The pen in his hand wrote several lines of formula on the paper from time to time. He stopped to think for a moment, and his eyebrows slightly rose, as if he had encountered something difficult. The lights in the classroom reflected on his face, outlining his cold wheals, making people look at them a few more times. Qing looked at her eyes, and a slight smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. "Especially who?" "Hee, I understand. Are you afraid of being sent to a mysterious school transfer student? But seriously, your recent interactions seem to be filming idol dramas, and there is still a bit of vagueness in the competition. Tsk. Don't talk nonsense." Nalan glared at her without any hesitation, her face feeling a little unconsciously hot. "I just don't want to go." "Okay, you go back first, I'll practice it for a while." Qing sniffed her shoulders and carried her bag. "Okay, maid, I can't control you. But it's too late. I won't be responsible for getting up tomorrow." After saying that, she snatched her hand and left the classroom with a humming little song. Soon there were only Nalan and Yi Chen left in the classroom. An inexplicable tranquility was filled with the air, with only the rustling sounds and the occasional turning of books. Nalan's trial pictures focus on the topic, but their eyes always linger at Yi Chen unconsciously. She found that he seemed a little absent-minded tonight, and his pen stopped more than usual, and he even stared at the pen for several times, as if he was trapped in some kind of memory. Finally, Nalan couldn't help but open her mouth and broke the silence. "Hey, Yi Chen, what's going on with you tonight? Seeing that you are absent-minded, how could you encounter something that cannot be solved?" Yi Chen raised his head, his eyes flashed slightly, and then he showed a light smile. "Why, do you care about me? Or do you want to take advantage of the opportunity to solve my problem?" Nalan rolled her eyes and teased her voice. "Stop being self-confident, I just think your condition is wrong, I'm afraid you will drag me back then. As the national competition is imminent, I don't want my opponent to be in poor condition, and I don't feel fulfilled even if I win." Yi Chen smiled lightly, put down the pen in his hand, leaned on the back of the chair, and felt a little more relaxed in his language. "Don't worry, my condition is very good. But, some old questions are tangled and they can't be solved." "Old question?" Nalan raised her eyebrows and curious in her heart. "What old question?" "If you say it, I might be able to help you." Yi Chen looked at her calmly for a moment, and a complex feeling flashed in his eyes, as if he was about to say something. Finally, he spoke in a low voice, with a slight sarcasm in his language. "You should have heard that 3 years ago, the competition genius from Beijing No. 1 Middle School. He was almost no one to win the national competition, but then suddenly disappeared." Nalan was stunned for a moment, and a name quickly appeared in her brain. Of course she heard the character in the story, Yi Chen, the unfailing myth of Beijing No. 1 Middle School. In the competition 3 years ago, he was almost everyone's dream. Many people set the goal of challenging him, but in the end they all failed. However, just as he was about to become the 3 consecutive champions, he withdrew from the competition without any signs and lingered from this sale. Are you that Yi Chen? Nalan's voice was filled with disbelief, his eyes filled with shock. How is that possible? Are you not a student? Why? Yi Chen pointed a little, and the smile on the corner of his mouth was filled with a bitter taste. It's me. 3 years ago, for some personal reasons, I had to quit the competition and leave Beijing No. 1 middle school. This time I came back, I transferred to your school and registered for the supplementary class, just to start over and get my honor back. Nalan was silent for a moment, and the brain was digesting this information quickly. She never thought that the seemingly cold and mysterious boy in front of her actually had such a brilliant and complicated past. She tried to read more from his expression, but Yi Chen's eyes were as deep as a pool of deep water, making it difficult to understand. Then, why are you going to quit? She finally couldn't help asking, with a cautious look in her language. Yi Chen looked at the notes on the table with a low voice and slow voice. Something happened at home, I had to give up the competition and deal with those problems carefully. During that time, I almost gave up everything related to the competition, and even didn't dare to touch the questions again. It was not until recently that I decided to come back. I didn't want the regrets of the past to become my shadow. There was a heavy feeling in his words that was hard to describe, and Nalan heard it, and her heart was inexplicably tightened. She has never seen Yi Chen's appearance before, as if she had removed all the guards and showed her truest side. She suddenly realized that although this person looked cold, he had deep thoughts and pressures deeper than anyone else. After a moment of silence, Nalan opened her voice lightly, I understand. I have had that kind of pressure. Although I have always been a champion, every time I compete, I am afraid that I will lose, and I am afraid that I will bear the expectations of everyone. It is very harmful to remember to hear it all, but in fact, it also makes me bear more things. I must win, it must be perfect, otherwise I am not Nalan. Yi Chen raised his head, a look of surprise flashed in his eyes, and then a gentle smile appeared. It seems that we are all the same. We are beaten by the champion's light ring and have to continue walking. Nalan clicked a little, and a warm current surged in her heart. She never expected that this conversation with Yi Chen would make her feel an unprecedented coeba. It turns out that this seemingly powerful opponent also has similar thorns and fragility to her. Since you've worked so hard, don't waste time. Yi Chen suddenly stood up. His temperament returned to his past appearance. Come on, let's practice the topic of the national competition, and see who can solve it first. Nalan was stunned for a moment, then laughed. Okay, I'm afraid you won't do it. But don't cry if you lose it. The two smiled at each other and quickly became involved in the topic. Under the lights in the classroom, 2 figures were buried in painstaking practice. I occasionally exchanged a few sentences of explanations. The atmosphere was no longer a simple competition, but a tacit understanding and warmth. They share each other's pressure and motivate each other, as if they have found a companion who can truly understand themselves. Time passed without thinking, and when Nalan finally solved a particularly difficult problem, she raised her head and found that Yi Chen was looking at her, with a hint of praise in her eyes. It's true, the idea of this question is very clever. Your ability to remember is indeed unfair. Nalan hummed, with a hint of pride in her voice, of course. However, your strategic thinking is not bad. For the just one, if you hadn't reminded me to change angles, I would have been stuck. Yi Chen smiled and said in a low voice, in fact, your memory has greater potential. If you can not only remember the knowledge, but combine memory and logic to form a memory deduction, then your solution speed and accuracy will be at the next stage. Memory deduction. Yi Chen picked up the pen, drew a few simple graphics on the draft paper, and began to patiently explain. In simple terms, it means treating the knowledge points you remember as a huge network, with contact between each point. You not only remember them, but also learn how to simulate and deduce them in the brain, predicting the various possibilities of the purpose of the question. In this way, no matter how the question sets the trap, you can see in advance, and even design solutions. Nalan heard it, and it seemed like a light was lit in his brain. She never thought that her past works would be able to apply like this. She quickly closed her eyes and tried to build the memory network in her brain, linking the knowledge points of past memory to simulate a comprehensive guideline. Sure enough, after she sorted it out again, the originally stuck place suddenly became clear, and even the idea of the question could be guessed 7 or 8 points. It's done. Nalan suddenly opened her eyes, her language full of excitement. Yi Chen, this method is so harmful. I just used memory deduction to go through that question again, found 3 potential traps, changed my thinking, and the speed was twice as fast as possible. Yi Chen looked at her excited appearance and a gentle smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. Look, I said, your potential is far more than that. If you continue to practice, no one can hold you in the national competition. Nalan clicked a little, and an unprecedented desire to fight in her heart. She knew that this time was not only a practical breakthrough, but also an establishment of trust between her and Yi Chen. They are no longer pure opponents, but partners who can develop and grow together. A few days later, the supplementary class officially ended and the students continued to participate in the national competition preparations. Although Nalan and Yi Chen are divided into different groups, their tacit understanding deepens invisibly, and occasionally they will discuss with each other while doing their own things and share their ideas for solving problems. Under the initiation of Yi Chen, Nalan practiced memory deduction, more and more familiar with the practice, and the problem-solving speed and accuracy rate increased by 1 file. The first national competition arrived soon, and the scale of this competition was unprecedentedly grand. Top players from all over the country gathered together, and the air was filled with a heavy smell of ignition. Nalan and Yi Chen's team both performed well in the initial competition and successfully advanced to the finals, but they also faced an unprecedented strong opponent, the championship team from Nanching No. 1 Middle School. This team takes teamwork as its core battle technique, and everyone's strength is extremely balanced and has almost no shortcomings. Their team leader is Korean Flying, and was last year's national games. He said that he made a comeback this year and he would have to win the championship. After the first game, Korean Flying took his teammates to find Nalan. His language was full of choruses. Nalan, I heard that you were the champion last year, but this year is not that simple. Our team at Nanching No. 1 Middle School has studied your problem-solving routines long ago. Don't blame us for being merciless in the game. Nalan sneered, and said, have you studied it thoroughly? Then try it. I want to see how capable you are. Korean Faye snorted and left with his teammates, his eyes full of confidence. When Nalan hit Nalan, she muttered in a low voice, this guy looks bad. I heard that their team has a very high tacit understanding, and can almost be wise and solve the problem quickly. Are you sure? Nalan didn't answer directly, but just glanced at Yi Chen who was not far away, and found that he was also looking at Han Fei's back, with a trace of deep thought in his eyes. She knew that this game was not only her personal battle, but also a challenge she and Yi Chen faced together. On the eve of the game, Nalan and Yi Chen made an appointment to conduct the last round of training in the campus library. They selected several questions that simulate the difficulty of the national competition and tried to simulate the environment of the competition. The topic is as tricky as ever, but Nalan's memory deduction ability quickly made her find a breakthrough, and Yi Chen's strategic thinking helped her to make up for the shortcomings in the details. The key to this topic is time allocation. You cannot just pursue speed, otherwise you will easily fall into the trap. Yi Chen analyzed in a low voice, and there was a silence in his language. You are responsible for the guidance, and I will help you sort out the strategy. Can we try to complete it within the specified time? Nalan clicked a little and quickly entered the topic. The two of them cooperated more and more tacitly. At the same time, they could understand the other party's ideas with just one look, like a real teammate. When they finally completed the last question, the time was stuck within the specified range and the answer was perfect and flawless. It's done. Nalan relaxed her breath, raised her head, and found that Yi Chen was looking at her, with a warm smile in her eyes. The game will be decided tomorrow, don't be stressed. Yi Chen said in a low voice, with a little more concerned about his temperament. No matter what the result is, you are much stronger than you in the past. So do I. I'm very happy to be able to get to this point with you. Nalan was stunned for a moment, and a warm current surged in her heart. She didn't expect that Yi Chen would say such a thing. She lowered her head, pretending to organize her pens, covering her strangeness, and her language was a little unnatural. Stop talking about these sensational words, I won't show mercy tomorrow. We all have our own abilities, and see who can laugh the last time. Yi Chen smiled lightly and said nothing, but just looked at her quietly, with an elusive emotion in his eyes. Under the lights of the library, the shadows of the two people were pulled long, as if they were talking nonsense. On the day of the game, there were crowds of people at the competition, and the players and visitors from all over the country would have been leaking. Nalan and Yi Chen's group stood in different areas, but their eyes kept communicating, as if they encouraged each other. South China No. 1 Middle School's Korean flying man stood in the most eye-catching position with his teammates, with a confident smile on his face, as if he had already been in the hands of his coupon. The competition officially begins, and the topics are unprecedentedly difficult. Each question is like a carefully designed trap, examining the candidate's knowledge preparation and psychological quality. Nalan quickly entered the state, and her ability to memorize and deduce made her feel as if she was fishy. She could predict the idea of the question in advance, and the answer was astonishing. Yi Chen's group is not to be outdone. His strategic thinking makes the entire team extremely efficient, almost driving with Nalan's group. However, what really shocked people was the team of Nanching No. 1 Middle School. Their tacit understanding was so terrifying that everyone was responsible for. Their questions were even faster than the group of Nalan and Yi Chen. Han Fei occasionally raised his head, glanced over Nalan, and a provocative smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, as if he had expected everything. Nalan, their speed is too fast. If this continues, we may really be overtaken. Xian Qing said anxiously, her palms were covered in sweat. Nalan bit her lip, and a feeling of reluctance surged in her heart. She knew that if she continued to follow the usual rules, she would definitely not be able to surpass Korean flying teams. She must once again break through her limits and find a brand new solution. Her brain flew quickly, and her ability to memorize was greatly realized. Suddenly, she flashed her mind and thought of a bold strategy, to abandon some small questions, directly attack the last high-score comprehensive question, use memory deduction to introduce the best solution, and fight for a one-time gap. Speak, let's change our strategy. Nalan said to the teammates in a low voice, with a hint of determination in his temperament, give up the first two questions and concentrate firepower to attack the last comprehensive question. I'll be the main guide, you will help me organize the data and calculate, let's take a chance. What? Let go of the question. This is too risky. Yan Qing widened her eyes, but when she saw Nalan's calm eyes, she could only grit her teeth and point, okay, let's fight. As time passed by minute, Nalan's guidance gradually took shape, and the memory deduction allowed her to quickly sort out the logical structure of the comprehensive questions, and even several potential traps that brought up the questions were discovered in advance by her. When she finally completed the final step of the promotion, the answer was perfectly presented, and even she couldn't believe it herself. It's done, she said in a low voice and quickly handed the answer to the referee. The referee checked it and showed a shocking expression on his face. He later announced, the first group, the comprehensive questions are correct. The solution is perfect, and the score exceeds all teams. A thunderous sound broke out from the museum, and everyone looked at Nalan's group, their eyes full of admiration. Korean Fei's face changed slightly, and it was obvious that Nalan would use this strategy. And Yi Chen looked at her, and a gratified smile appeared on the corner of her mouth, as if she had known she could do it for a long time. Finally, Nalan's group defeated the team of Nanching No. 1 Middle School with a slight advantage and successfully won the championship. Yi Chen's group won the second place, and the results were also impressive. After the competition, Korea flew to Nalan, with a little unwillingness in his language and was filled with respect. Nalan, you are a disaster. I lost this time, but next year, I will definitely challenge you again. Nalan smiled, her language was filled with confidence. I will accompany you anytime. After the crowd dispersed, Nalan and Yi Chen stood shoulder to shoulder at the game, and the remaining vicissitudes of Xiang were on them, as if they had put a warm sentence on this game. Yi Chen looked at her with a soft and unsatisfactory gentleness in his speech. Congratulations, champion. Today's performance is really wonderful. Nalan raised her eyebrows and teased her voice with a little bit of teasing. You are not bad, Ajuan. If I hadn't been in good condition today, I might have been robbed of you. Yi Chen smiled lightly, and there was a touch of meaning in his eyes. Next time, I won't let you go again. But I'm really happy to be able to compete with you. Nalan, thank you for helping me find myself back. Nalan was stunned for a moment, and a warm current surged in her heart. She didn't say anything, but just looked at him quietly, with a smile on the corner of her mouth. Under the sunset, the shadows of the two people were very close, as if they were talking about each other's feelings without a sound. The national competition's glory belongs to them, and their story seems to have just begun. Early in the morning of the day, the competition outside the campus was already full of people, and top players, coaches and visitors from all over the country were bleeding. The air was filled with the breath of tightness and expectation, and the sun passed through the glass dome of the venue, and the rays were in every corner, as if to kick off the battle of youth. Nalan was wearing a school uniform and carrying a shoulder bag, standing at the entrance of the pickup passage, with her ears filled with the endless encouragement. Nalan, you have to give me some strength today. The national competition is decided, and if you win you will be the queen who has failed for 2 years, a legend among the legends. Xian Qing put her shoulders with one hand and the other with an exclamation hand, and there was a bright light in her eyes. Besides, if you and Yi Chen are fighting against the competition CP today, the scene will be so ignited. I was ready to scream in the audience. Nalan rolled her eyes and pushed her hand helplessly. Don't be so CP is not CP, it's the same as it is. Today is the team competition, and Yi Chen and I are just a temporary team. The goal is the champion, don't think about it. She said this, and her eyes were unconsciously glancing at Yi Chen, who was not far away. Yi Chen was wearing a simple black sportswear, leaning against the wall of the passage, looking down at the notes in his hand, with his eyebrows slightly, as if he was imitating a competition strategy in his brain. His face looked particularly cold in the morning light, and it was filled with a difficult and negligible attraction. Nalan's heart moved slightly, and immediately quickly took back her video, pretending to organize the things in her bag, and covering up her own strangeness. Hey, don't put it on, your eyes have already sold you. When Xiaoqing came over, she teased, I tell you, if you can cooperate tacitly and win the championship today, you may have some other reward after the game ends. Do you understand what I mean? I understand your head. Nalan glared at her without any hesitation, her face feeling a little hot. Okay, don't be polite, the competition is about to begin. You go to the audience and sit here, don't add anything here. Qing smiled and slapped her hand. Okay, I can't leave yet. But remember, if you win, you have to ask me for milk tea, the kind that's a month. After saying that, she ran to the audience with smoke, leaving Nalan alone to calm down. At this time, Yi Chen raised his head, as if he had noticed her vision and walked towards her. His steps were not tight or slow, and a smile was hanging on the corner of his mouth, and his eyes were filled with an exploratory meaning. Why, it's tight. Nalan raised her eyebrows and made a strong decision. Hard? I was the champion of last year. When have you seen it? But don't drag me back until then. Yi Chen smiled lightly, and his words were filled with a look. Don't worry, today is a team competition, I won't let you sing a unique role alone. Our goals are the same, and the champion must be ours. He decided to do it, and his eyes suddenly became serious. Nalan, today is our last joining team, don't leave any regrets. Nalan was stunned for a moment, and an inexplicable emotion surged in her heart. She clicked a little and said in a low voice, Okay, don't leave any regrets. The two of them smiled at each other, as if they had reached a soundless agreement. Afterwards, they walked into the competition's shoulder to welcome countless gazes. A hot voice burst out from the audience, some shouting, "Queen Nalan," and some discussing Yi Chen's return, and the atmosphere in the entire museum was instantly ignited. The rules of this national competition are different from the past. In order to test the candidates' comprehensive abilities, the team competition system is adopted. Each team is composed of 2 to 3 people. The topics cover the comprehensive application of multiple subjects such as mathematics, physics, and chemistry, and have added the assessment of strategy allocation and time management. The final score not only depends on the correctness of the problem, but also closely related to team coordination and efficiency. Because of their outstanding performance during the replenishment class, Nalan and Yi Chen were temporarily formed into a team to compete with the top teams of other schools. Although their team has only 2, they are still popular in the first and semifinals with Nalan's past and Yi Chen's top strategy. However, the real challenge is still at the back. The opponent in the game is the championship team from Nanching No. 1 Middle School. The team of Nanching No. 1 Middle School is composed of 3 players. Team leader Han Fei was a national team last year. He is powerful and extremely capable. His 2 teammates are also top players in the fields of physics and chemistry. The 3 of them cooperated tacitly and had almost no shortcomings. They crushed their opponents with inverted scores in the semifinals and became the nightmare for all teams. Before the competition started, Korean Flying walked to Nalan and Yi Chen with teammates, with a confident smile on his face, and his lingerie was full of choruses. "Nalan, Yi Chen, I heard that you are the Black Horse combination this year, but it's a pity that we will decide for this championship today. Our Nanching No. 1 Middle School is going to make a decision. Your personal ability is good, but the team competition is not a single fight. Be prepared to accept the failure." Nalan sneered, and said without retching, "What's the use of saying it's harmful? The real seal at the competition is not sure who wins." Yi Chen just glanced at Korea with a faint look. His words were calm and slight. "It's useless to say more, I'll see it under my hands." Korean Fei snorted and returned to his position with his teammates, his eyes filled with confidence in holding the coupon. The audience member was stunned and muttered in a low voice, "This guy is too ugly. Nalan, slap him hard on the face." The competition officially began, and the referee announced the first round question, and a comprehensive mathematical physics connection was displayed on the screen, which was completed within 30 minutes. The question not only requires accurate calculations, but also requires choosing the best strategy among multiple solutions, otherwise even if the answer is correct, you will lose points due to inappropriate time allocation. Nalan quickly glanced at the topic, and relevant formulas and knowledge appeared in her brain. Her ability to remember her almost didn't need to read books. She said to Yi Chen in a low voice, "The key to this topic is to simplify the physical model. I am responsible for data guidance. You help me design the solution method. We will complete it within 20 minutes." Yi Chen clicked the point and quickly outlined the strategic framework on the draft paper. "Okay, you are the main focus on the guidance, and I will come to optimize the steps, focusing on time saving. There are 3 potential traps in this topic, and we must avoid common ideas and directly use the reverse diversion method." The 2 of them cooperated in an unusually tacit understanding. Nalan's fingers danced on the calculator. The ability of memorizing and deducing allowed her to quickly sort out the logical structure of the topic, and Yi Chen kept adjusting the strategy to ensure that every step was accurate and efficient. Their movements were as if they were soundless dances, with the referees and audiences watching them look unconscious. However, the team of Nanching No. 1 Middle School is not to be outdone. The division of labor in the Korean Flying team is clear. One person is responsible for mathematical calculations, one person handles the physical model. The Korean Flying is a staggering overall situation, and the cooperation between the 3 is in vain. Their speed was even 1 minute faster than Nalan and Yi Chen. It took only 18 minutes to complete the first question and hand in the paper first. After the referee checked, he announced, "Nanching No. 1 Middle School, the first question is perfect, with 10 points in scores, 2 points in time, and 12 points in total. A sound of palm burst out from the museum, and Korean Flying turned to look at Nalan, with a smug smile on the corner of his mouth. Nalan bit her lip, and a feeling of reluctance in her heart, but she quickly adjusted her condition, completed the final calculation with Yi Chen, and handed the answer to the referee. Nalan team, the first question is the same, with 10 points in scores, 1 point in time, 11 points in total. The referee's voice sounded. Although the scores were behind, Nalan and Yi Chen's performance was still astonishing. The first round fell behind, so we have to speed up next. Nalan said to Yi Chen in a low voice, with a hint of determination in his eyes, their cooperation is indeed bad, but we can't be on the starting line either. Yi Chen pointed a little, and his language was cold, don't be anxious. Their strategy is to seek speed and stability, but lack of change. The next round of questions will be more complicated. We can surpass them as long as we seize the opportunity. The second round of question was soon announced. This time, a comprehensive question combining chemistry reactions and mathematical modeling is difficult to go to the next floor. Not only does it require players to be proficient in multi-school knowledge, but it also requires the best solution sequence in a limited time. The time limit is still 30 minutes, but the question has set up multiple branch options, and the score and risks of each option survive, testing the team's decision-making ability. Nalan quickly analyzed the topic and said to Yi Chen in a low voice, there are 3 branches in this topic. On the surface, the first branch is the simplest, but the actual score is the lowest and it will waste time. I suggest choosing the third branch directly. Although it is difficult, the score is the highest, which is worth a try. Yi Chen snaked his eyebrows, quickly calculated the risks, and then pointed out, okay, let's choose the third branch. You are responsible for quantitative analysis of chemical reactions, and I'll design a mathematical modeling strategy. Remember, time is the key, and we have to complete it within 25 minutes. The two quickly became involved in the topic. Nalan's memory deduction ability was extremely impressive. She seemed to have a huge knowledge network in her brain. All the chemical reaction data and formulas were instantly adjusted by her, and the guidance process was like a flowing flow. Yi Chen focused on modeling strategies, with every step accurate and error-free, and even predicted several potential traps in advance, making Nalan's guidance even more smooth. However, the team of Nanching No. 1 Middle School still maintained the lead. They chose the second branch. Although the score was not as high as the third branch, the risk was lower. The 3 of them cooperated without leaking water and were shockingly fast. Han Fei raised his head and glanced at Nalan and Yi Chen, his eyes full of confidence, as if he had expected them to choose a high-risk path. As time passed, Nalan's palms were sweating slightly, but her eyes were unusually focused. When she completed the final step of chemistry response, Yi Chen's mathematical modeling was about to end, and the two quickly answered the answers and handed over the paper after confirming that there was no error. After the referee checked, a shocked expression appeared on his face. Nalan team, the second question is right, choose the third branch, with a basic score of 15 points, a time extra 2 points, a total score of 17 points. Currently, the total score is 28 points, and it is time to take the lead. A thunderous sound broke out in the museum, and Feng Qing in the audience jumped up excitedly, shouting, Nalan is awesome. Yi Chen is awesome. It's a version. Nalan relaxed his breath and looked at Yi Chen, and smiled at both of them. The answer sheet of Nanching No. 1 Middle School was handed over later. Although it was all right, because the second branch was selected, the basic score was only 12 points, plus 1 point extra for time, with a total score of 25 points, and 3 points behind the Nalan team at a time. South Korea's flying face finally became a little difficult to see. He whispered to the teammates, in the next round, we can't be stable anymore. Just choose the most difficult path and fight them head-on. The third round is the last round and the key to the game. This question is not only unprecedentedly difficult, but also adds elements of team strategy confrontation. The two teams need to compete for resources in the same question. By solving the problem progress, the more resource points, the higher the final score bonus. This means that the speed of problem solving and strategy allocation will directly determine the consequences. As soon as the topic was announced, Nalan and Yi Chen quickly exchanged their eyes, and the two realized almost at the same time that this was the final battle. Nalan said in a low voice, "The allocation of resource points in this issue is the key. I am responsible for the guidance and to solve the core problem as quickly as possible. You are responsible for the strategy of resource points. We must take the double control." Yi Chen pointed a little, and his language was filled with a sense of war. "Okay, I'll leave you the core problem, and I'll get the resource point." Although their cooperation is bad, it lacks flexibility. As long as we grasp this, we can suppress them. As the competition entered the stage of white heat, Nalan's memory deduction ability was finally discovered, and the knowledge network in the brain was crazy, and she accurately captured every detail, and the problem-solving speed was astonishing. Yi Chen is focusing on the conflict of resource points. His strategic thinking allows him to always predict the next step of the Korean flying team, and even set traps in advance, causing the other side to suffer setbacks. However, the Korean team is not vegetarian either. They quickly adjusted their strategies, and the division of labor between the three people became more refined, and they forced the conflict between resource points to 50% and even once suppressed Yi Chen. The atmosphere in the museum became more and more intense, and the audience held their breath, their eyes tightly changing with the scores on the screen. With only the last 5 minutes left, Nalan finally completed the final step of the core problem, and the answer was perfectly presented. She quickly handed the result to Yi Chen and said in a low voice, "It's done. What's the matter with resource points?" Yi Chen wiped the sweat from his head and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. "Don't worry, I've taken down 70% of the resource points, and I have suppressed their strategies. Please hand in the paper, the champion is ours." The two quickly sorted out the answer sheet and handed it to the referee. At the same time, the Korean team also completed the topic, but their resource points were only 30%, and the score bonus was obviously insufficient. After the referee checked, the final result was announced. Nalan team, the third round is matched, the resource point is added 7 points, the total score is 45 points. Nanching No. 1 Middle School, the third round is matched, the resource point is added 3 points, the total score is 40 points. Champions League, Nalan team. A deafening palm and cry burst out from the museum. Ching was so excited that her eyes almost fell off in the audience, shouting, "Nalan, you are my queen. Yi Chen, you are super good too." Nalan and Yi Chen smiled at each other, and an unprecedented sense of satisfaction sensation surged in her heart. They not only won the championship, but also completed their breakthrough in this game. Han Fei walked up to them, and although his face was a little unwilling, he still stretched out his hand and said with respect, "Nalan, Yi Chen, you won beautifully. I lost this time, but next year, I will definitely come and challenge you again." Nalan smiled and shook hands with him. "I'll be with you anytime." After the competition ended, the venue gradually scattered, and the remaining days of the sun set out on the small road outside the competition to give the day a warm sentence. Nalan and Yi Chen walked on the road shoulder to shoulder, holding the champion cup in their hands, and a relaxed smile on their faces. Yi Chen caught up from behind and slapped Nalan's shoulders, her lingering in her language, "You are so ignited today. That tacit understanding is as if a brain is moving. I tell you, I almost cried when I take this champion." Nalan pushed her helplessly, teasing her with a little bit of words, "Stop being so proud, why are you crying? Can't you ask you to have milk tea when you go back?" Yen Qing smiled and her eyes turned back between the two people, and her lingering was filled with chanting, "Milk tea is a small matter, and I want to know more. Should you upgrade from this warrior relationship? Today's cooperation seems to be a little different no matter how you think it is." Nalan's face turned red and was about to respond. She heard Yi Chen beside her speak in a low voice. "Yi Qing said right, there are some things that should be clearly explained." Nalan was stunned for a moment, turned to look at him, and found that his eyes were unusually serious, as if there was something important hidden. Her heartbeat inexplicably accelerated, and her verbal expression was strong. "What should I say clearly?" Yi Chen stopped and turned to her. The light of the sun shone on his face, making his expression look particularly gentle. He took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "Nalan, I am very happy to compete with you and grow together during this period. You have made me find myself back in my past, and I understand that some feelings cannot be hidden, and I don't want to hide them." Nalan's heart thumped suddenly, and the brain was blank. She looked at Yi Chen's eyes, as if she was touched by the touch of true emotions, and was a little at a loss. What were you talking about?" Yi Chen smiled, and there was a tight slide in his speech, but more of a certainty. "I like you, Nalan. From the first day of the refining class, I knew that you were not just my opponent, but also the person I wanted to get close to. I dared to say this when I won the championship today. If you have the same feeling, I want to be with you, not just a fighter, but a more close relationship." The air seemed to freeze for a moment, and Nalan's face instantly reddish like a ripe apple, and her heartbeat was so loud that she could hear it. She never thought that Yi Chen would confess so directly, let alone that deep down she had a different feeling for him. The sparks in the competition and the tacit understanding that fought shoulder to shoulder had long since made her heart fall quietly. Qing covered her mouth and laughed secretly, muttering in a low voice, "I'll just say it. This drama is sweeter than an idle drama. I'll withdraw first, you chat slowly." After saying that, she ran away with smoke, leaving two people alone. Nalan lowered her head and was silent for a moment, finally plucked up her courage and raised her head, looking straight into Yi Chen's eyes, with a hint of shame in her language, but more of it was honest. "In fact, I have long thought that you are different. I will not only become stronger in the competition with you, but also, I am more happy. I like this feeling, and I like you." As the words were said, she seemed to have removed a huge burden and felt much more relaxed. Yi Chen was stunned for a moment, then showed a slight smile, as if he had obtained the most precious treasure in the world. He said lightly, "Then, let's be together from today. It's not just a matchmaker on the competition, but also a companion in life." Nalan clicked a little, and a sweet smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. "Okay." Under the sunset, the two of them stood shoulder to shoulder, and their shadows were pulled long, as if they were talking about each other's feelings without sound. Far away, Qing secretly poked her head out. Looking at this scene, she couldn't help but wipe the corners of her eyes and muttered in a low voice, "Hey, youth is so good. This person has finally achieved his true results, and I have to find a brother to talk about love." A few days later, the campus held a national competition event, and Nalan and Yi Chen, as representatives of the champion team, stood on the stage to receive commendation. The prize cup in their hands shone brightly under the lights, and the students in the audience were thundering and their eyes were filled with admiration. Nalan looked at Qing in the audience, and the other party was comparing a big heart shape at her, and couldn't help laughing. At this moment, she not only became the legendary champion on the competition, but also found her true love and growth in the battle of her youth. Those pressures, striking and challenge turned into the most beautiful memories and were engraved in her heart. In the days after the competition, Nalan and Yi Chen still maintained the enthusiasm of learning and competition, but their lives were filled with sweetness and companionship. They would play themselves in the library together, take a walk on campus paths, and encourage each other before the competition, like each other's most realistic backing. The passion and blood of youth and the sweetness of love are perfectly integrated in them. And Nalan knew that no matter how difficult the future was, as long as Yi Chen was around her, she could continue to write her own legend without fear.